So my name is Lindokuhle Matina, and I am a first-year student in the African Music Department. So I don't have any work that I've produced like everyone here, but I do have some thoughts and I'd like to share them with you. So yeah, we're going to be talking about archiving through the lens and hashtag Google as the recontextualization. Yeah. So just to do introductions on me, why this first year is here, speaking to you all important people. So as I said, first I'd like to say thank you so much, Theo, for dragging me to come present here. I had no idea in my first year I'd be doing this kind of stuff, but hey, we're here now, thank you. And thank you to the Lord just for the gift of everything that is done through music. Thank you to my husband who's with the kids right now, and thank you to you guys for being here. So yeah, so I started at UCT some while ago, and I was doing film, right? So as a high school student, I was a very good student. I used to get straight A's, and then my mom thought I'm gonna be a doctor, and I'm gonna be a lawyer maybe, I'm gonna do all these grand stuff, and I was like, oh, I wanna be a musician. She was like, So yeah, we're here now. So my first endeavor into music was actually a secret affair. I applied secretly to Wits for Jazz, which I got in, and I never told my mom. She only found out this year through a magazine article she read. That was nice. So yeah, that happened, and then I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do social anthropology, I'm gonna do psychology, it's next to doctor, so you know, we're getting somewhere. Then I was like, no, who am I kidding? I'm a creative, let me do film. Went into film, I got into this specialization course, which I did, and then that's what I did, and then I got pregnant midway, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do this double major, social anthropology, we'll do film. We'll see what the whole thing is gonna happen later on. So that's what I did, and then I met these kids, very unusual kids, and they had these instruments. Now I know it's called Uadi and Umkhube, and they are alumni of here. You guys may know them, Tande Galuza Mfinyongo, Odwa Bongo, Eninko Senati Koela, and Odwa Bongo. I did mention his name. Oh yeah, so, and then they had a group called Azanian Aesthetics, and I was like interested, and I was like annoyingly with them all the time, just like very curious, wanting to find out, oh, how do you play this? What is this and what is that? And I was just that curious, annoying kid from upper campus. And so that's like sort of where my love for indigenous and African instruments began. And then I raised my kids for 3 years. I came back. That's why I'm in first year again. And I started my career and to further hone my skills in playing the instruments that I'm talking about. So my interest into speaking about what I'm going to be talking about here today is basically on archiving through like visuals, specifically the camera. I'm talking about motion pictures, I'm talking about pictures as well. And I think why this is important to archiving our story is because like our instruments as African people and the indigenous instruments, it's a very sensitive thing because it's a very communal and a people-based and indigenous knowledge-based. It's not really a setting like this, or we're talking about reading music, even though we can do that. But so I find it's very important to archive that with everything that has happened in our continent in South Africa, to be contextual about it. We don't have really much history that's written. We don't have much history that we can look at and say, oh, this is how this flowed from here to here, and this is how we got to this point. So I find that to be very important work that we don't like talk a lot about in the academic spaces, because we think, oh, it's just art. But I think there's a beautiful relationship that's happening with creativity and academia. So I'm more of that girl. So yeah. Now, while we're here with board electrons, right? So I want to speak about, usually with the music that we do, a lot of our elders, they really, it's a nostalgic thing for them to see young people play instruments their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers used to play. It's a thing of like, you need to stay pure, you need to keep the culture going and all of that. And I think it's a beautiful thing, but I think it's also quite limiting because now the world is moving into this very technological, you know, crazed space, which is amazing because it means that we get to reach further people around the globe, not just South Africa or Africa, and get to educate them about the people that we are, about the systems and just the intelligence that we have indigenously and otherwise. So yeah, I just speak on just the benefits of technology, specifically looking at the visual technology. And I spoke about, and I was actually talking to Theo about this, and that's why I think he was like, you should come to this thing, think you're gonna be cool at it. And I was speaking to him how like, it's so cool that I can be here with my instrument and I'm able to instantly reach the globe through like a YouTube video or whatever thing that I'll be putting out on the internet, right? And then also I think it's important to visually and use technology to archive because it means that the data keeps its integrity, because I was actually thinking of the fire that happened at the UCT African Library, where lots of archives were lost during that fire because most of those things were written down, or maybe they were audio, but it's like now we have all these technological tools that we can actually, you know, restore stuff that are lost technologically. So I think that's quite cool. So that's more also the documentation side of things, doing more documentaries, educating people more about where this comes from, how you play it, and I love that side of it, but I think I'm more towards the creative expression of it, which is like poetic visuals, where we get to push the boundaries a bit, where it's not just, oh, this and this and that, but like you actually get to maybe create something that wasn't there before. So I look at that also, I focus on the artistic expression of these instruments and I create new narratives around them. And now we're gonna go into an example, which is me. So part-time, I also rap on the side, Nje. So yeah, I just wanna share with you guys a video that a friend, sorry? Oh, do your thing. So yeah, I want to share with you guys a video we shot. We're just fooling around with my friends and we did this mashup of like playing Oadi and actually putting it on a trap beat. So that's what you're going to be listening to. It's called Tamagugulas. It's a small snippet.
Soma kwaza ngalomkhondo hayo soma kwaza. See my tribe really jigging now. Won't give a bullet kumpato. They be rocking in Wakanda now. And this the kind of song that Opala would get down to. Bumagodine Tamagu, Shukushi Pegile, then after this track, please. Tamagugulas, eh? Tamagavas. Tamagugulas, oh you niggas Tamagavas. Tamagugulas, Tamagavas. Tamagugulas, oh you niggas Tamagavas. We be chasing fame.
So that is the song. So yeah, like in terms of that, it then goes on to the second point I was talking about, which is actually recontextualizing what we do in African music and the indigenous instruments. So with the song Tamagugulas, firstly the title, it's taking an indigenous saying, which is Tamagu, which in isiXhosa means quite a lot of things, but it's quite a sacred saying. It could mean thank you, it could mean you agreeing. It's like the amen of the church, right? And then I took the word Google and I combined the two. So it's like, you need to Google us, you know, you need to Google our people, you need to Google our history, and that's the play on that. And I believe that, you know, with visuals, there's a nuance that's added, you know. There's just a storytelling that is essentially like the Black history and heritage that's been erased. And I was speaking to Denise earlier on, and I was telling her, I have this analogy when I think of the work of archiving. It's almost like our ancestors, like, okay, a blank page would be the world, right? It was a blank canvas, and then they wrote very, very like dark on there, and they made this impact. And with every struggle we faced, and oppression and systematic oppression, there's been like an erasure of what they've written. And we, as this generation that's coming up with technology, we are getting to retrace that. And we all know if you're trying to retrace something that's been erased, most of the times you're not really going to get the exact thing that was written. So recontextualization in that sense, that we get to have maybe not a negative view on like it's not exactly the same, but we're creating a new language for our people. So I just want to read this off to close. It says, visuals add nuance to our storytelling, which is essentially the Black history and heritage that's been erased. For me, to archive is having the courage, you know, and I spoke about the paper, and knowing you'll probably mistrace a letter, and that's recontextualization for me. It's coming up with new words because we know we will never retrieve it all back as it was. Let's write some things anew, give ourselves a new language from the one of old. Kamako. And that's it. Yeah. So I put Matosini there. Those glasses were meant to stay on her eyes. I don't know what happened with the editing child, but that happened. And these are also some of the people I look at, specifically Umatosini, because she has recontextualized rural music, and she's brought it out in the urban because she was living in Kwalanga at the time, but also Utandega with her grunge aesthetic, and she's added fashion to it, which just, it alleviates the whole visual aspect of things. And then there's me looking beautiful and fly, you know? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Questions? I'm sure that there are many issues, not issues, but many points that one would like to. I've got a gazillion, but here you go.
This is really, really wonderful and kind of preempts my paper tomorrow so well, because I speak about Somogwaza, I speak about archiving, and now I have to go and rewrite my paper. But also so nice to see Sis Tandeka up there. She's at our department at the moment and making such an incredible impact exactly through this idea of the visual and upending a certain kind of preservationist idea around what indigenous music should be, which isn't always that helpful, right? And Madusini, you know, she had a really weird kind of conception around this. She'd say, I play in this way, but at least this was Tandeka saying to me, Tandeka, you take it and you play like that, and you'll push it in that way, but when I play like this. And one of the really interesting things that came up around those conversations was the roles of technology specifically playing in that kind of music. And things that Tandeka has done a lot of, you know, attaching jacks to the uhadi so that you can, you know, ease the playing experience, amplify it and so on. And it's really controversial. I didn't think it would be, but, you know, there are settings where people are really upset about not only playing the music in a certain way, but playing for a certain kind of audience. As soon as you start playing to a kind of seated audience or like a theater audience or something like that, people become really upset. And I'm wondering whether you've had similar kind of experiences of people sort of saying, but what you're doing is destroying the tradition, or, you know, and how you respond to some of those maybe.
Thank you so much for your question and commentary, William. I think I've had not necessarily people like bashing the way I'm moving with it, but this sort of breathing down my neck of this is how it should be, and you better stick to like that lane of it being like that. So yeah, I get that a lot on social media, crazy enough. Yeah, people just comment, please keep it like that, my sister. And I'm like, I do have other work that's like not like this, like the one I just showed you. So I really don't care that much with how I'm creatively interpreting the music that's been handed down to us. I think to each his own, and I think it's beautiful that we can have such a multi-dimensional and multifaceted group of people that just do what they feel like, you know, for me, this is how this resonates with me. It's not going to be the same for us all, and I think Tandeka hit it on the nail. And that's exactly what Umatosini was doing. She would always tell us, like, I'm going to do this, but you guys are going to fly with it, right? And I think that's really what's happening, which is so beautiful. But again, the importance of archiving what is happening. Because at the same time, I think that the other thing I'm not really liking with academia is the restrictions I feel sometimes, in the sense of like, this kind of presentation or the things that we do, it's like it's performance, but it's like it can also be academic and it can also be archived and studied like to change, you know, the way people are thinking about it. Even you saying, you know, maybe I just need to go restructure some things because you've had an interaction, you know, with someone that's also lived the experience of being sort of in the forefront and behind the scenes of that. So thank you so much for that. But yeah, I don't really care.
Hi there, thank you so much for that. I just had a question in terms of you mentioned archiving. How important is the factor of visually capturing what you're doing versus the auditive aspect to it, the listening experience, and preserving that, you know, via archiving? Do you think the visual aspect is important to preserving the music?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that question. We spoke a bit about this in the break with Denise, and as I mentioned also in the presentation, I think with every bit of nuance you can add, it's great because it makes the story richer, because the story is rich when we're experiencing it in real life. In real life, you're not audibly hearing me, you are seeing me, you're experiencing me, my spirit, the room, everything in it. So I think it's not necessarily that I'm choosing visuals, but it's what I enjoy and am passionate about. But I do think it's important because then you get to see things you wouldn't see in an audio. You get to see what was I wearing today, which is part of the presentation to people that know. And it's also like being in that experience of it adds more to the experience of it, I think. And with audio, it's amazing because you could have the same thing, but with audio, it allows you to, and this is what Intomi were based off, like the storytelling, it allows you to envision things, right? And even you envisioning and imagining new things, you want to visually see those things, or you are trying to visually see them. So I think it adds, I think it's quite important, but I don't think it's one over the other. I think both of them are quite equally as important. I hope I answered you. Thank you.
Cece, what can I say? It's been a fantastic experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.